Good evening and welcome. I'm delighted to have you with us for the 6th ICG 2020's Development Dialogue with Dr. Ritu Karidhal, Senior Scientist at ISRO. Dr. Karidhal will be in conversation with Mr. Dattaraj Salgaonkar, Vice President, International Center, Goa. Before we begin, we have a very quick introduction by Mr. Yatin Kakotkar, President of the International Center, Goa. Mr. Kakotkar?
Good evening and a warm welcome to the International Center Goa and to the 6th webinar program of the Series 2020's Development Dialogue. The topic today is the making of India's rocket woman, and the speaker is Dr. Ritu Karidhal. Dr. Karidhal is a senior scientist in the Indian Space Research Organization with a key role in realizing Mars Orbiter mission. Mars Orbiter mission, which created history by becoming the first mission to reach Mars in its first attempt. As Deputy Operations Director for Mars Orbiter mission, Dr. Karidhal and a team executed the critical operation of leaving Earth and capturing Mars flawlessly. As the mission director of Chandrayaan-2, she carried out the mission operation from liftoff until it reached the moon. Dr. Karidhal did a MSc in physics from Lucknow University and MTech from the Indian Institute of Science. She has published more than 20 papers in reputed international and national journals. Dr. Karidhal is the recipient of several awards, including the Young Scientist Award, ISRO Team Award for Mars Orbiter Mission, ASI Team Award, and Women Achievers in Aerospace. She recently received an honorary doctorate degree from Lucknow University and the Indian Institute of Science Alumnus Award. Dr. Karidhal is an inspiration and a role model for Indian women to make a career in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that is the STEM discipline. In India, women account for 40% of STEM graduates, but only 14% of STEM jobs. This is a drag on India's economic, technological, and social development. Gender inequality in STEM jobs in India is an issue policymakers have to resolve. At a broader level, India also needs to increase the number of women in the total workforce. In India, women comprise about 26% of total workforce, while the global average, excluding India, is 50%. The corresponding figure for China is nearly 60%. According to research by the International Monetary Fund, India's GDP would be 27% higher if the number of women in the workforce increased to the same level as that of men. Increasing the number of women in STEM jobs in particular, and the workforce in general, is one of the pathways for India achieving its target of becoming a 5 trillion plus economy in the future. In conversation with Dr. Karidhal is Mr. Dattaraj Salgaonkar. Mr. Salgaonkar is the chairman of the Goa-based VM Salgaonkar Corporation Private Limited with a presence in hospitality, real estate, and private equity. He is passionate about education and the arts, and his foundation runs schools and colleges in Goa. He founded the Sunaprant Goa Center for the Arts in 2007, which has transformed the Goan cultural landscape. He's a production engineer from VJTI Bombay University and an MBA from the Wharton Business School. Mr. Salgaonkar is a founder member of ICG, Vice President of ICG, and chairs the ICG Programs Committee. Before we start, ICG is pleased to announce that the speaker for the next webinar in the second half of June is eminent scientist Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, former head of Indian Space Research Organization and chairman of the committee that drafted the National Education Policy 2020. I now hand over the session to Mr. Salgaonkar, and I hope you find it interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Yatin, and a warm welcome to Dr. Ritu Karidhal. Thank you so much, Dr. Ritu, for your presence and your time and for being with us. And I will dive in straight to the many questions we have, and all the audience is very eager to hear from you. In India, Dr. Ritu, physics and mathematics are normally not the chosen path for many, and they are very difficult subjects to quite a few. In your case, you obtained a degree in physics from Lucknow University and went on to earn an MTech from the prestigious Indian Institute of Science. Please tell us about your journey from your childhood, your parents, and what made you choose these subjects like physics and mathematics?
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Actually, first of all, I would like to thank that you have invited me to such a prestigious platform and being able to share my experience. Yes, we know that the participation of women in STEM is very low. Due to various reasons, if we start talking, it will take a lot of time. But yes, one of the main reason which I feel, we understand, is that the basic stereotype, stereotype that girls cannot learn or cannot pursue science and maths, and it is suitable only for boys, and that starts at the very beginning. It starts even at home itself, or from the elementary school level itself. uh, Fortunately, my parents have never believed in this gender discrimination, and they always supported all my brothers and sisters. And, they have helped us. Maybe that is the main reason. And I feel the support from the family, from the school teachers at the elementary level, that only plays a main role for a girl to come up and take up these difficult topics. It's not difficult topics, it is, again, I'm telling, it's a stereotype making they know it's really difficult, it cannot be pursued. So at the support from parents and teachers, it plays a very, very important role. And I feel that is the main reason, that is the main factor why I'm here, why I was able to choose my path and continue to have the career in science.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu. But was it your fascination for the stars? I mean, you mentioned that, outer space, the stars fascinated you, and that, this led you to choose a career in that field by joining ISRO. Did your education help you, or it was just that life took its own direction for you?
Yes, that is very interesting. Actually, since my childhood, I remember still when we used to go, in a rickshaw and all, and used to travel from one place to another. So I always used to ask mommy why this moon is always also coming with us wherever we are going. It's coming with us, and that type of curiosity used to be there. I had the fascination. Yes, what is happening? What is the dynamics behind? Why the moon is moving, why the moon disappears suddenly and then appears slowly. So I mean, these all fascination was there since my childhood. And I remember I used to, keep track of all the activities happening in ISRO or NASA, collecting the newspaper articles of very small, small events which used to happen in these organizations, keep track of them. And that is what from since, beginning, and then it went up. And then my parents also, yes, if you have the interest, you should pursue your subject in science and maths. And that is how both, actually these both ingredients made me to take up this and be really able to continue. So yes, that was the main thing. And now also when we see, I mean, there are lot of unknowns in the area of space science which really need to be understood. Still it fascinates me more and more, more and more. It is not stopped yet. So that's true. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu. The Greeks associate Mars with their god Ares, which is the god of war. And in India, Mars is known as Mangal. So Mangal, for many, some, not many, but quite a few, they believe if Mangal is in the wrong position in your Janam Kundali, that is not the best thing to have. And they do a lot of pujas and everything. So there's a lot of fascination for Mars, for Mangal. Tell us about your own personal fascination with Mars. I mean, you mentioned the moon earlier. How about Mars?
Yes, because moon we could see in the childhood, no? So it was like more, but technically speaking, Mars, yes, we used to see which is our nearest neighbor. So we know our nearest neighbor is Mars, and it is like said that billions of years ago, when our Earth was just a ball of molten iron. There used to be there was a suitable amount of air and suitable amount of optimal amount of water which could sustain life on Mars. So it was said that there may be a life, there was life billions of years ago on Mars. And as the time passed on, we know that Mars lost all its favorable conditions, and while our Earth, it became like it flourished with life. So this to understand basically what could have happened, why the Mars lost its favorable conditions, while our Earth, our planet, flourished into a livable planet. So those questions still, I mean, it is not yet understood. And so if we go towards Mars, if we send satellites towards Mars, try to understand what really happened, all those data when we collect, we analyze, there'll be some answer questions which could get answered. So technically speaking, Mars is really provides a very, very example, or maybe a destination where really the humankind can reach in, can go and colonize and get settled in near future. So to understand Mars, yes, that's really a fascination in all the among the space scientists. So to explore Mars. So we also had in our ISRO that, yes, that fascination and that objective of exploring more and more on Mars.
Coming to the Mars orbiter mission, MOM or Mangalyaan, as it has been known, has been absolutely an outstanding success in the world. We are proud of you and your team and what you have achieved at the first attempt. A single mistake at various stages can just jeopardize the whole mission. We wanted you, Dr. Ritu, to take us through the various steps of this mission and explain to us the challenges you faced and how you overcame them and were so successful. Dr. Ritu.
Yeah, actually, I have prepared a few slides on how our space program. I will just start from our space program, how it started, and then how we moved towards Mars orbiter mission and how we achieved. So I will be sharing my slides.
Sure, I'll just ask Dr. Pushkar to.
Yeah. As it also, maybe I will say, let's start our journey where we will see how the India is having the giant leap from Earth to Moon to Mars. We know that India was a great and ancient civilization with medical texts dating back to 800 BC. Indian astronomy reached its peak in the 5th century under the great astronomer and mathematician Aryabhatta, who figured out that Earth revolves around the sun some 1,000 years before Europeans did it. But again, waves of invasion and colonization, it led to the decline of science in India. Not until independence in 1947 was India able to make a fresh start. If you talk about space program, for Indian space program, the story goes right back to the 1960s under the vision of great physicist Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. Vision of using space technology to solve the real problems of man and society. But then it was not an easy task to convince the government of the day about the relevance of the space program for a developing nation. Eventually, with all his possible efforts, he succeeded in obtaining funds for the space program, and that was when the space journey began. This you can see this was how those initial days looked like, a very humble beginning with extremely limited resources. In this pictures you can see a satellite being transported in the bullock cart, the rockets are carried to a bicycle, the scientists are working in a very limited resources. So these was the days where we began. But then If we talk about our first satellite in 1975, the first Indian satellite Aryabhatta was launched. And then later on, we continued our efforts to build much more advanced rockets and satellites, culminating into our first moon mission, Chandrayaan-1, which detected evidence of water on lunar surface. So after this achievement, our next step had to be our neighboring planet, Mars. Before just taking to you all towards Mars, I just wanted to share a passage from a book by Mitch Albom's Tuesdays with Morris, where Morris talks about two waves. There are two waves in an ocean, they're conversing to each other. And the wave in the front tells the wave behind that it is scared. It is scared because now it's about to crash on the shore and cease to exist. The second wave, however, shows no fear and explains to the first, you are frightened because you identify yourself as only as a wave. I am not afraid because I perceive myself as a part of this mighty ocean, which can never cease to exist. The Israelites are like that second wave, and that is how they function. They function with so much of cohesion and motivation as part of a one dedicated team, merging their individualities for achieving the higher goals of ISRO. So, as I told, this after this big achievement of Chandrayaan-1, ISRO's next goal was the neighboring planet Mars. Now, as I told in our earlier discussion, that why we need to go to Mars. So, as the first very questions arise in our mind, like, is there any life on Mars? Is there water on Mars? Is colonization possible? As I told earlier also that Mars used to have the favorable conditions, but then it lost all its favorable conditions and it became a desert. So data about Mars, it can really help us to understand how this happened and provide answers to some of our queries. Okay, that was one reason, but the next reason is improving the quality of life on Earth itself. I will give an example. A computer algorithm which was developed for one of the space programs, when applied to these X-ray images, it did a better job at detecting the early stages of breast cancer than the conventional method. What I want to say is this cross-pollination of fields, like innovating in one and then bringing revolution in other, that happens all the time. So it undoubtedly improves the quality of life. And then the main reason to inspire the next generation of space explorers who can contribute to the future growth of a nation. And that's why the ISRO's next step towards this higher goal was mission to Mars. When we talk about Mars, the biggest challenge in for this type of missions, when we talk, just have it. The biggest challenge in the missions where we have to leave the Earth's atmosphere and start going towards a different planet, which is called the interplanetary mission, is that we have to have a great amount of autonomy. I will just come what really this autonomy means. Before that, when we started this mission, actually, we had a very tough challenge. At that time, we had to complete this full project in just mere 18 months of time. And we did not have any previous heritage for such missions. You can understand, like, is in such missions, the to and fro time, when you send a signal and the signal comes back to you, it may take a maximum of 40 minutes. What does it mean? For example, if somebody wants to switch on a bulb to a remote control, it will take 20 minutes for the bulb to come on and then 20 more minutes to confirm whether the bulb has come on or not. So what does it mean? Such a huge time delay. It meant that we had to build an extensive amount of onboard autonomy. We had to build systems that are capable of doing self-diagnostics, self-recovery, as well as executing all the instructions with the highest precisions, because the minutest error in executing those instructions would jeopardize the whole mission. And this is what had happened to many earlier missions of NASA, Russia, Japan, and China. Of the 51 missions so far at that time, only 21 were succeeded. That is less than 50% of success rate. And remember, no one could achieve it at the first time. So we started working on it, and while the hardware that we used was adapted from many previously successful missions, the autonomy software was almost a completely new venture for us. So we used to have, rigorous process of brainstorming sessions with all engineers in all streams, say mechanical, electrical, electronics. And with all those brainstorming sessions, a network of autonomy, it was drafted with different levels of fault detection and recovery. Thousands of lines of codes were implemented on onboard computers, followed by extensive reviews. The what plays an important role is when we write a code, it needs to be thoroughly reviewed and then tested. So that took place, and all that could happen in a mere 10 months of time. Something which looked very much impossible at the beginning, but could be achieved in the record time. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is all because of that ISROite spirit, working as a dedicated team. And being one of the prime designer of Mom Autonomy, I remember I used to spend many nights awake at home and to bring out this design draft of the mission requirements. My home became my next second office at those times. Working hours used to be like 12 o'clock night after completing all house chores till 4 o'clock in the morning. So that is how we worked at that time. To really a few students who are part of this session, I would just give a few understanding on really why this autonomy is very important. Anyhow, that I told that this is a larger round trip time. It means, when you're sending a signal, you are getting a signal, it's a huge time delay, that we all understand. But then also one more important constraint is the stations. When we have to track any satellite which is going away and away from Earth planet, we need to have the deep space ground stations. They are not like regular ground stations. They are come into the category of deep space ground stations. So we have limited number of deep space ground stations. So these are the major constraints. The other important point is that when the spacecraft moves towards a different and the distance keeps on increasing, we cannot do any real-time operations. What does a real-time operation means is that in our normal satellite, which is revolving around the Earth, we can send some commands, we can see what is happening on the spacecraft, and then we can react to those. If there is an eventuality, we can recover, we can do the contingency operation. But then, as I told, when this large round trip time is involved, you can't do the real time operations. So, and then also the satellite is not visible all the times. You have very limited amount of data which you can see, or the way you can send the commands. So all these complicated and all these requirements means we have to have a system which can operate on its own. So here some of the you can see, this is the maybe if it is visible, that when the distance increases, when the satellite moves away and away from Earth, how this round trip time also keeps on increasing. And that we were at the distance of 220 to 400 millions of kilometers, the time also correspondingly the increases from 25 minutes, and the round trip time sometimes can become 40 minutes. So one more important thing is that we can't there is also, like you can see, there is a sun in between, and then we have earth, and the red color orbit is a Mars, and we have this whenever the the satellite comes, there are certain points where the communication cannot be established, because the sun can come between earth and Mars. There will be some geometry where when the satellite is orbiting around Mars, there'll be some geometry where the sun can come between earth and Mars. You can see the geometry where both are opposite to each other, while earth is revolving in the inner orbit and Mars is revolving in the outer orbit. There'll be some alignment where both are at the opposite sides. So any communication cannot be established at those times. So we can't leave the satellite just like that in those times. Those can be of the order of 14 to 17 days, or maybe more than a month also. So this is called the blackout geometry. Similarly, we have whiteout geometry. So these are the times, or these are the events where we cannot establish the link with the satellite, and then we have, but still the satellite should work. It should not be left like that. So these are the reasons, and these are the requirements which we had to dwell upon in the first time. We really had to understand what are these requirements, and then how to really make the satellite a smart satellite. So for really achieving the autonomy, the first thing we understood, yes, it has to have a self-diagnostic systems, and then it should also do self-recovery. So how you can do self-diagnostics or self-recovery? Basically, there are computers on the satellite, the onboard computers, and they need to continuously monitor, watch all the parameters, and any parameter, if it is seen at any time it is showing us some faulty behavior, we have to identify that. Then that system which is really showing a faulty behavior, it should get isolated, and immediately a redundant system has to come in to so that the prime functions doesn't get affected. The prime function is that spacecraft should remain intact. It should generate power for all the other systems. It should work. It should be held in the proper orientation. So all those prime functions should not get disturbed. So and suddenly, even this is not the only thing. Sometimes even if we do all those fault detection, isolation, or reconfiguration, still sometimes you may land up in, before reconfiguration itself, there can be a sudden failure. So if there is a sudden failure, we have to have a mode which can again do automatic recovery. So that is what we called is like a safe mode. We in a satellite terminology, that is called the safe mode. So we enter into a safe mode where all the activities, major activities of the satellite get suspended, and on its own, the onboard computers try to revive in the progressive manner, and but all that had to happen in an autonomous way without the human intervention in loop. So that is what we had built in. Like, there were 4 different levels of autonomy: when there is within a system, across the system, and when there is a sudden failure. So there were different levels of autonomy, and it could be, yes, as I told, thousands of lines of codes were written and then tested. We used to spend a lot of time in the checkout, our checkout place, where those failures were created and seen that whether it reacts what we expected, the way the system is reconfiguring itself or not. Huge amount of testing. It was a huge amount of testing. So that is how we could achieve that in that short interval of time. Coming to some hardware elements, this is, you can see, it is like the propulsion system. This is very important for any satellite or for any interplanetary mission. Here we were using the liquid engines, that engines, they provide the thrust, they provide the so these are the reasons, and these are the requirements which we had to dwell upon in the first time. We really had to understand what are these requirements, and then how to really make the satellite a smart satellite. So for really achieving the autonomy, the first thing we understood, yes, it has to have a self-diagnostic systems, and then it should also do self-recovery. So how you can do self-diagnostics or self-recovery? Basically, there are computers on the satellite, the onboard computers, and they need to continuously monitor, watch all the parameters, and any parameter, if it is seen at any time, it is showing us some faulty behavior, we have to identify that. Then that system which is really showing a faulty behavior, it should get isolated, and immediately a redundant system has to come in to so that the prime functions doesn't get affected. The prime function is that spacecraft should remain intact. It should generate power for all the other systems. It should work. It should be held in the proper orientation. So all those prime functions should not get disturbed. So and suddenly, even this is not the only thing. Sometimes even if we do all those fault detection, isolation, or reconfiguration, still sometime you will land up in, before reconfiguration itself, there can be a sudden failure. So if there is a sudden failure, we have to have a mode which can again do automatic recovery. So that is what we called is like a safe mode. We in a satellite terminology, that is called the safe mode. So we enter into a safe mode where all the activities, major activities and of the satellite get suspended, and on its own the onboard computers try to revive in the progressive manner. And but all that had to happen in an autonomous way without the human intervention in loop. So that is what we had built in. Like, there were 4 different levels of autonomy: when there is within a system, across the system, and when there is a sudden failure. So there were different levels of autonomy, and it could be, yes, as I told, thousands of lines of codes were written and then tested. We used to spend a lot of time in the checkout, our checkout place, where those failures were created and seen that whether it reacts what we expected, the way the system is reconfiguring itself or not. Huge amount of testing. It was a huge amount of testing. So that is how we could achieve that in that short interval of time. Coming to some hardware elements, this is, you can see, it is like the propulsion system. This is very important for any satellite or for any interplanetary mission. Here we were using the liquid engines. That engines, they provide the thrust, they provide the it is why it is required. First of all, it is required because when we are in space and we have to go towards a certain direction, or when we have to change our path, we need the force, we need the thrust. And these are the engines, the liquid engines, which were providing those thrust to us. And but we've never had an experience of using these engines in the deep space. What happens is, like, you can imagine that these engines, when we used it, it was all the time in the geosynchronous satellite system, where it was all the time revolving around the Earth. We never have gone beyond the gravity of Earth. But then the same engines, when we take it in the deep space, the conditions are totally different. The temperature conditions, the vacuum conditions are different than what we have in near Earth. And we never have gone to those space situations. But then we created those type of scenarios, in our simulators, in our environment, in space environment, space labs. We created and we tested the engines, and very happy to say that first time yeah, after the because I'll be telling it like it is spent the satellite spent around 10 months of time. The engines of those time were not used, they were all it was all sleeping in the sleeping mode. But then we had to restart it, we reignite it. So our main concern was once we reignite, whether it gets reignited or not. It's like, when you don't use your car for a long time, it always difficult to restart. So there was a concern then, but then with all our tests and regressive testing and all, we were very sure that yes, it will do its job, and it did it. Then coming to the next more important aspect of satellite, you can see this is a big antenna. I know this is like in Mars orbiter mission, we have different types of antennas. The antennas which can communicate when we are at very short distance, the antennas which will be communicating when we reach the medium distance in the somewhere 10 millions or 20 millions, and then there is antenna which has to work when you are at 220 millions of kilometers to 400 millions of kilometers, you know. So these antennas basically work as the ear of the spacecraft. And we, again, as I told, we had never had it, we never had this heritage of having this highly sensitive antennas. And their sensitivity needs to be tuned, so that they respond to our instructions, to signals which are traveling so much, and the strength of the signal, a very, very feeble signal reaches to the satellite, but then it identifies, it picks up, it understands, and then sends it to the other parts of the satellite. It is like the task of hearing a person's whisper across a soccer field. You can imagine the sensitivity of the antenna. If it is not sensitive, whatever commands or whatever signal you send, the satellite will not respond. So that was this amount of sensitivity which the antenna had to have, and then I'm very happy to say that it worked perfectly well. Then the other more major important, when you are having a system, it needs to be powered all the times. So if from where we get this power, so the main source of power on earth itself, we know our sun. And for this satellite also, for when we go to a certain distance, we depend on the solar energy. So these are the solar panels which were used to generate the power, and it was distributed to all the systems which were there in the satellite. But then this is also was very challenging because solar power panels needs to be designed for a particular amount of sun intensity. So the cells are designed accordingly. When we use it on earth, the cells have to be designed so that they generate energy with the intensity which we receive on earth. But then when we go again more and more towards Mars in the deep space, the solar intensity reduces. So then the cells again have to have that efficiency that even they can generate power at that intensity also. But it means that these cells were designed to, to work for this wider range of temperature, wider range of intensity. This was again the first time we did it, and then it also performed perfectly as expected well. So these are few of the things apart from this autonomy and software. This the hardwares also which we used it, like we adapted the technology from previous missions, but they all had to be tuned. They all had to work in this new environment. That is what these panels also worked very well. Now coming to the other important part, the next major challenge for us.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the antenna and sensitivity. How long does it take for you to send a signal there and then it comes back? Because this is, we take for granted that you press a button and it works, right? And we phone somebody from Goa and we talk to New York, and it's already we can listen. So when you send a signal, Dr. Ritu, to this mission, how long does it take? Can you just tell our
Yes. So I would like to again go to my slide, which I covered here. So you can see here the distance when it is increasing. We know the speed of light, so the signal goes in with the speed of light and then comes back. So you can see on the x-axis where we can see how the days, the distance is increasing with the number of days. When the satellite goes towards the Mars, the distance is increasing. You can say 50 million kilometers, 100 millions of kilometers, 150 millions of kilometers. So when we are at, say, for example, at 200 millions or 100 millions of kilometers distance, at that time, the time can be of the order of 10 minutes. You send a signal and get back. It will take 10 minutes of the time. 5 minutes to go, 5 minutes to come. Similarly, when we reach towards the Mars, the distance can be 225 million kilometers, and it can go up to 400 millions of kilometers. And that time, the round trip time can be of the order of 25 minutes, and it can go up to 40 minutes. So, if you send a signal and then you just wait for 40 minutes to get what would have really happened. First of all, 20 minutes it will take to reach the satellite, then satellite will do its activity, and then it will send you back whether it has done what you wanted, and then you will know only after 20 minutes. So such a huge time delay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is the reason we can't do any real-time operation. When we talk of this real-time thing, the terminology of real-time and near real-time, we can't operate in that regime in real-time or near real-time. So when we can't operate, we can't micromanage the system, we have to have the autonomy. So that was the need of the autonomy for such missions.
Thank you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just covering this point where the next major challenge for us was, to design a precise path. Again, that is also very important, because we need to we need to have a trajectory which would take the satellite, the spacecraft from Earth to Mars, and then it should do also with minimum fuel. Always fuel also plays an important role, but we can't load more and more fuel. But then we have a limitation with respect to liftoff, the launch vehicle. So we have to achieve everything with the minimum fuel. So again, very important is like when we talk of minimum fuel, there is something comes into picture is launch window. You can have a mission with minimum fuel, but then you have to launch the satellite or launch the spacecraft in a given window only. So that window for this type of mission going towards Mars, it comes only once in 26 months. So if you lose that window time and you are not able to launch in that window, then you have to again wait for 26 months. So so we had to realize everything. There was like, Mars was only driving our schedules. We were not given any relaxation on the schedules. We had to do everything in time so that we can launch within that given launch window. For a few of the students who were participating, I will just say that why this, it is very much driven by the launch window or the launch time. You can see the inner orbit where the Earth is revolving around the Sun, and then outer orbit where the Mars is revolving around the Sun. So what happens? We are basically designing a trajectory which starts from Earth's orbit and then goes and reaches to the Mars orbit. If it is, I'm showing the pointer, if it is visible to all of you. So just you can see that when we design this type of trajectory, it means that when we depart the Earth's gravity, means when we leave the Earth's gravity and start moving in this orbit, and then when we reach at this orbit, at that time Mars is also should come and meet here. Suppose, for example, you can reach to this orbit, you can reach to this point, but at that time, if the Mars is behind or Mars is gone away, then you can never reach, you can never get captured by Mars. That means you will become a flyby. It will just go and it will just become an orbit around the Sun. It will not be able to capture Mars. So that was very important. And in this type of geometry, because when you leave the Earth, at that time Mars should be somewhere in between, around 46 degrees away from Earth. So it means that you have to depart at that point only. When the Mars reaches at a particular point, that point only we need to depart, and we need to leave the Earth, so that when or on its path, when satellite reaches the Mars orbit, the Mars also reaches there, and then you get captured by the Mars gravity. So this is why it was very important to achieve this liftoff at the given launch window. Hope I'm able to explain, because I just wanted to cover this is to really understand the importance of the time, and working in the set deadlines and set windows. Our launches are very much driven by the launch windows. So here it was driven by Mars, reaching Mars and Mars orbit. So this is one of the picture where you can see, satellite, it got mated with the rocket, and then one more here I would just like to cover. So once the rocket takes off, we also thought of like one more way of minimizing the fuel, and that was like when the satellite takes off, and every time when the rocket takes off, what happens is it will go beyond the Earth's atmosphere, go up to a certain height, say 200 or 50 kilometers of height, and then at that place it will inject the satellite into the orbit. So when it injects the satellite into the orbit, usually you will see that it is straight away over near the Mauritius, or near the, after liftoff, it will inject near the Mauritius or so. But here, to gain on the fuel, what we had to do, this launch vehicle had to inject not over India, but over Pacific, somewhere, the west coast of Australia, somewhere in the Pacific. So and at that place we did not have any ground stations, we did not have an antennas to track the vehicles. So we decided to deploy 2 ships over those locations, which again, if you have to deploy ships, it takes its own time. It took around 2 months of time, first of all, to reach at that place. And ships were they started moving, and then at the time when they were about to reach, they could not reach in time, because what happened, there was a bad weather, there was a huge storm over the sea, and they got delayed by almost 10 days. And we were having, as I told, very limited window. So at that time we were racing against the time. But then, before the time was up, on 5th of November 2013, our mighty PSLV successfully took off and put the spacecraft in its first parking orbit. So we could achieve it in the given deadline, or in the given launch window. Now, this slide, you can see that the most unique part of this Mars orbiter mission was the trajectory, having the multiple slingshots. It's like somebody is playing with a slingshot. So with each sling, you can see the distance from the Earth is increasing. And then you can say maybe after 25 days later, we had the final maneuver, we had the final burn operation, which at that operation, what will happen is spacecraft will leave the Earth's gravity and will start moving towards the Mars, which we call it like cruising. This is called the cruising. And this cruise direction, direction of cruise, it plays a very important role. And here, when you do any maneuver or any burn operation, it demands an exact and accurate performance of almost 99.9%. If you miss it, you can't even if you are left the Earth's gravity and you have gone towards the cruising, you will not reach Mars. Because you will, again, as I told, the path, by the time you reach, either Mars would have left that place and left that point, or it will not have reached that point. So you will not be able to get captured by Mars. So that is actually many other missions, failed either before leaving or, while leaving this Earth's gravity. And ISRO made history on 30th November 2013 itself, when MOM successfully left for the cruise in its first attempt. one more thing I just want to say, during cruise, when I told it's a long path, you can see there's a trajectory which the satellite needs to follow. But when we go in this trajectory, our navigation engineers, they have to keep track of it very minutely. Any disturbance from any disturbing force. For example, in space, there are multiple sources of disturbances or perturbative forces which will change this path direction. So we need to continuously monitor these navigation parameters. We find that if there is any deviation which is not tolerable, we need to trim it. We need to do a trajectory correction maneuvers. So in 10 months of time, we had this, continuous monitoring on this navigation parameters, and we did almost some 3 correction maneuvers before we reached to the near to the Mars orbit, to the near to Mars. So this is how we this was designed. I'll give you one example here. You can see, how it is just to show how challenging it was to get this correct cruise and maintain this path direction. It is like you go outside, and this example given by Dr. Charles Elijah, former director of JPL NASA. It just shows that how you go outside and start and hit a golf ball towards a hole where the hole is located somewhere in the Los Angeles, and the golf ball has to go straight into the hole. And to make it more even more challenging, the hole is moving. So this is the complexity, or the challenge was to attain the direction when the hole itself is moving, and direction has to be really perfect to get into this hole. So then, yes, we, being the deputy operations director, actually, this distance, when you say, it was around 650 millions of kilometer distance it traveled before, before reaching the Mars. The satellite traveled around 650 millions of kilometers of distance, and then we were just 500 kilometers away. But then, you are so near to Mars doesn't mean that you have achieved the mission. As I told, we need to get captured by Mars gravity. The satellite should start rotating around the Mars. That is called Mars orbit insertion, or MOI operation. This is the most critical one-time operation. If you miss it, you lose it. There is no second chance. So yes, being the deputy operations director for this mission, me and my team was responsible to ensure that this operation takes place as per the set configuration. Again, because the minutest error in operation again would jeopardize the whole mission. So as you asked, at the time of capture, we were at around 224 million kilometer distance from Mars. Actually, the satellite has traveled 650 million kilometers, but the distance at that time, the straight line distance from Mars to Earth, was around 224 million kilometers. And at that time, the one-way trip time was around some 12 minutes. So if you send a signal, it will take some 24 minutes for you to understand what has really happened. So yes, our preparations for MOI, started some 2 months before itself, and we used to have extensive reviews. What should be the configuration? What the command should be given? So all this final configuration was loaded some 10 days before the actual MOI day. And then the D-Day, that was 24th of September 2014, at 7 a.m. IST, we received the first signal indicating the correct start of the auto sequence by onboard computers. 21 minutes later, the main engine started firing. It ignited and it started firing, and that was the time when half of the success was ensured. But then what happened? 4 minutes later, all the signals stopped coming. It actually, the spacecraft went behind the Mars. When it is rotating around the Mars, it went behind the Mars, from where the signals could not reach to Earth. So we couldn't see what is happening. We were not having any data to understand what is happening. So it was as if the time had stopped, and all eyes in the control center were glued to the computer screens. And for 26 minutes, there was a complete and utter silence. But then at 8 a.m. IST on 24th of September, the history was made. The hall erupted with, jubilant cheers and claps. I could not believe that I had become part of such a spectacular historic moment. Mom successfully entered Martian orbit with many firsts into its account. It was the first mission in the world to succeed in its first attempt. It was the most economical interplanetary mission in the world. It was a project realized in shortest time of 18 months. It was the first Indian satellite having full-scale onboard autonomy. And above all, it was the youngest team of women and men scientists with equal participation that worked for this mission. Now we have completed almost 6 years of life. Satellite is around rotating around Mars. It is sending huge amount of data. These are few of the images which got captured by the instruments which we had in Mars orbiter mission. This was the first mission. Its orbit was so peculiar that it can capture Mars, the North Pole and the South Pole in the one shot. So you would have heard that there are a lot of dust storms in the Mars atmosphere. So these dust storms, how they move from one northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, and in a single time, it could be captured with our cameras, with our instruments. And these are few of the pictures, wells of mariners, the impact craters, the volcano Tharsis, Tholas, and a lot of images, lot of data. It is being flowing, and lot of physicists and the scientists keep on observing and doing this, trying to understand, and then some of the mysteries could get revealed surely. But I feel the major contribution of Mom can be seen in this letter by a young boy to the chairman of ISRO, expressing how proud he feels for India and he desires to join ISRO. So while this mission, I say, it has stirred inspiration into veins of every Indian student and created an awe and fervor in the whole country towards science and technology. The bigger mission was to empowering 1.3 billion people and making them realize the inherent strength and power of Indians to reach of our planet and showing to the world we are second to none. Thank you very much.
I think all of us congratulate you and your team for a very brilliant, successful mission. It's very rare these things happen, but congratulations one, and thank you for sharing all this. I have one question. Everything worked very well in Mangalyaan, but in Chandrayaan-2, in which everything went perfectly well, until the moon probe Vikram crash landed on the moon's surface. This can happen, these are things which have to be taken in stride. So how do you and your team deal with failures like this and move on?
It's a very, very good question. Actually, in this science, the space science basically, and when we say of going into the deep space, we really, this is all the space of unknowns. And some things we put our full efforts, we put our full understanding, full as I told, the teamwork was tremendous. Even in Chandrayaan-2, it was like like carrying 3 satellites in one go, because we had orbiter, we had lander, we had rover. So all the 3, and then man, and everything went on well till the last moment. But then, as you also told, this is the space science and the rocket science. It's sometimes when we deal with something of somewhere unknown, and we work with our understanding, somewhere some mishaps happen. But these failures, they always give us a good lesson, and these always become our baseline of further how to improve on, and how to improve, or how to get the systems which will again not fail. So these are all happen in our science field or in technology. This happens, but then we have to take it as a learning lesson. This is one of the lesson, and then we move on. So we are also moving on. So we have understood, we have learned the lesson, and then we will have a good successful mission very soon.
You spoke about ISRO and the waves and, how you're part of an ocean. ISRO is a very fabulous organization and very unique. And, the success, of course, is attributed to the vision and the leadership of its founders, like Dr. Vikram Sarabhai and Professor Satish Dhawan, who developed a very distinct culture and ethos of, technical meritocracy and innovation and teamwork. And, we don't see that in many government institutions, we see that in ISRO and all its sister companies and other things, What do you attribute ISRO's success to?
Yes, from my presentation, I think you also can make out. But yes, as per my experience, I will just say yes, ISRO has set a benchmark of being a very successful organization in this complex field of science, space exploration, space technology. I will just bring out the four factors which I feel really play a very important role. Main is the work culture. In ISRO, I have never, the work environment is so cordial, and it is purely depending upon the prime focus always is on the merit, it is always on the knowledge and the skill. Irrespective of gender and generation, even it doesn't mean you are a woman or a men scientist. The problem is being posed to you. The problem is if you are able to provide the solution that is taken. Even generation, can be a young scientist, or you can be a senior scientist or a junior scientist, but it doesn't matter. In many of our reviews you will find that a young scientist or young engineer can stand and tell his point of view and propose a solution, and it will be acceptable. So this type of environment, there is no bar with respect to gender or with respect to generation. I feel this type of culture really promotes, and it helps in achieving what we get it. And the second important thing, as I mentioned earlier, in ISRO, somehow, when we work, we all work as a teamwork. There is nothing called it's my goal, it's your goal. It's towards the higher goal of ISRO. So everyone works with that motivation, that what I try to explain through that wave story. So this is a teamwork which is supreme, I feel. So yes, when we have a team and when we keep motivate, when we really see that team is kept motivated, and when the teamwork really, when the team works, then that is when the success is ensured. So that is the second thing. The third, I will say, a very meticulous planning. I have seen, the project of such nature and all that. See, every hourly basis, deadlines are set, they are tracked, they are, when it is required towards the achieving them. So there is a meticulous planning, and then a lot of brainstorming sessions. Even contingencies may not come, but we used to have the discussions. If contingency happen, what we will do. Actually, our most of the time gets spent in discussing and in bringing out the solutions if contingency happens. We don't wait for the contingency and then react, but we keep our plans ready. Plan A, plan B. If plan A doesn't work, plan B should be made ready well in advance. So this type of planning, it really helps. Such missions like Mars Orbiter mission also, we had different plans. If we are not able, see, after reaching such a huge distance, very near to Mars, if you are not successful with plan A, you should have a plan B. We should not give up just like that. So that meticulous planning is very important. And last but not the least, our stringent review mechanism. It is like at every step, at every phase of the mission, we have many review boards, and then each plan, each procedures get reviewed, it gets cleared. So these are the main factors. I feel they play a very important, and this is all what I'm saying with my all experience. So these are the things which really play an important role for a successful organization.
Thank you so much. I think it is so much to learn. We being in the private sector, I think there's a lot of things to learn, and even for institutions, I think this is a great thing what our homegrown ISRO has done. Let me move on to the other part of space, I mean, Dr. Ritu, this has been fascinated many writers, in the sense that about space and, space fiction, science fiction, and some of it has come true in the sense that, space travel. I mean, who thought, when I was young, I mean, when, that time I was also fascinated, but this has never happened, but then it happened. I mean, with the Russians and, then the American landing on the moon, and then even artificial intelligence. And then you talked about autonomy. It is a reality now. Many years back, it was just science fiction. One other thing which is being also spoken of is life existing outside planet Earth. You briefly mentioned there was water on Mars. Have you or your colleagues ever considered discussing the possibility of life outside planet Earth as a subject for serious scientific exploration? I mean, are there Martians or UFOs or extraterrestrial persons? I mean, can you speak a bit on that? I mean, I'm sure I'd love to hear your views, on what you think life exists outside the Earth.
Yeah, actually, technically, I am a space mission engineer. So I deal with the basically, designing the satellite and how to control and how to do mission planning. But yes, we have different sections and different groups where the scientists keep on, working, keep on, how to like whether really the life exists on Mars, what type of instruments should we place on the satellite or on the spacecraft which can detect or which can be used for really understanding the life or the conditions which are important for life on any planet or any outer body. Yes, like Mars, for example, when people started looking towards Mars, because as I told, there was a life on Mars, and then there may be some life forms, and it is sure that yeah, we can't say that we are alone in this universe. So we it is our always curious to find out, yes, what are the life forms. It can be of different form, it can be same like us, it can be of different form, but really we are really curious in the people who are really working the space segment or purely in the space physics. There are a lot of works is going on, and in our ISRO also there are people are trying to understand uh, making various instruments, various payloads which can really give some data which can help us to understand whether life is there or not. So the it is always as you told in long back, we never thought of that this can happen, we can reach moon or Mars, but then now we are reached moon or Mars. So the time is not far where you will get some signal, and then you will also so we should not stop looking at towards the life forms. So we should keep on getting so much of data as space is sending, a lot of, when we start looking towards the sky, a lot of big huge telescopes and payloads on the various satellites, they are sending huge amount of data. We need to keep seeing the data and also keep innovating new instruments which can really detect something different also. So we have to work in the full spectrum, and surely one day we will get some signals. So yeah, we should not stop, we have to keep moving, and really something will really happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu. Space research and exploration, I mean, it has really helped countries and many fields like, for example, weather forecasting. I mean, it has been very useful for that, and for communications, defense purposes. I mean, there are, so many benefits, and, even these things like solar panels, which you have, or liquid hydrogen as fuel, which is, is a fuel which people are working towards. I mean, there are so many spin-offs, so many benefits which happen for space research when you are doing so many, and the autonomy itself. I mean, I think I've been fascinated by it since I read about it. I never knew such thing can exist out in upper space. So do you see private sector and government working together to sort of, get these benefits going down to the people? Ultimately, the people have to benefit from all this. So do you see a lot of benefits reaching down to the common man from, your space research at the top, and then, you have a thing which can spread like the weather and, to help the farmers and everybody. Do you see other areas like solar panels, hydrogen fuel, autonomy, such things? Do you see Dr. Ritu reaching and helping the common man in India?
Yes, it's a very good question. As I also covered in my presentation, that innovation in one field and then bringing the revolutionary changes in another, that is what it happens. So when we do something in space science, doesn't mean it is limited to the space science only. It can be used in many other areas. And I'm very happy to say, like, we have many programs, and today if you talk of telecommunication, telemedicine, television, anyhow, with so many different channels, and then navigation services, you can be, this is because of space, GPS receivers and then SPS in orbit satellites. So navigation, where you can reach from one place to another, and for a common man, if you ask for a very, like, for example, a fisherman, our satellites like OceanSat, and we have so many other satellites, and they have the instruments which can, detect where the density of fishes are more, when the concentration of fishes is more. So the fisherman need not to go and search for the whole place, and then, all the fuel is wasted, the time is wasted, the money is wasted. But if he really knows where to go, he will go get the fishes and come back. So it will really help in saving the fuel, the money, and it will help him to get a good advantage. So it is a very simple example. Similarly, there are lots of ways where the satellites are getting utilized. The applications are enormous. In the field of farming, if you say how the farmers, which place we can do what type of farming, so the data can be used, and the water resources, where the water is found anywhere, the what level. So some of the schemes are going on. There are various government schemes also, working with our satellite data, and trying to. But yes, as you told, private and government together, this data can be used in a multiple ways, much more enhanced, and it can be really expanded, because it provides some data which a normal person, or we can't go and get from space. It is reachable, space is reachable to a place where we can't go, and it can provide the data of, for example, the disaster management, the prediction of the weather, so those things, and then pre-planning, and these are really very important. And I feel that today also we see lots of places it's getting utilized, but it can be used further with the private participation. I think it can be further enhanced and further used, so it will surely reach to a common man, and it will surely help, because this is the place, space science, it provides data to everyone. It provides, if we want, the solutions can be taken from this data to each and every field in some way or the other. So it is going, it's really, it will really help in, reaching to the far common man. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions from me, and then audience have got quite a few questions. So I'll just ask you a couple of more questions, Dr. Ritu. It has been fascinating. I wish we could go on. One is about ISRO not being attracting engineers and persons from the so-called elite engineering and institutes like IIT. I mean, IIT is so underrepresented there. When it's very difficult to get into IITs, and what motivates, and, the brains are the same. I mean, people who are in ISRO are the same as anywhere else. I mean, even better. And all of you work for the nation building. There's a sense of pride. You have achieved so much. And, it's money is not the motive. It's not commercial, but it's for a higher cause. It's for the nation, a sense of pride. So what will motivate our brilliant minds of IITs and other institutions, to join ISRO?
Yes, I think, more than this motivation for nation's development, I feel everyone has the love towards the nation. But I feel the more it is driven by, the opportunities available in the different fields, not only in space science, the different various sections, like in be it space or any other technology or any other field. So the opportunities which are available in diverse fields, that play a more important role. I find, if we focus on more on the research, highly developed research labs and the working more focus on research in very sophisticated or very complicated technologies, promoting those type of works, that type of, yes, ISRO is there, then we have to have many such organizations or many such research labs or many such places where the people can find their goals and find their interesting work, and then can continue to do the work. So more than that, I feel that is what is more important. So and now I'm seeing like more focus is there on research, but yes, we still have to have more focus on the research areas and creating more and more places where people can work. It's not just a common work like an IIT. If you see, he may work, but it will not be like if we have to create that complex sort of works and activities where you can spend. ISRO is giving that opportunity. People are coming, but yes, we need to expand. That is what I feel. And now a lot of the startups are coming up, because the space also has been opened slowly, and many startups are coming. Many even IITians and all are starting the startups in this area, space area. So like that, many other areas also can be thought of. So it will surely attract the youth. It's not that they're not motivated to help, but yes, these are the things which really will attract them. Yeah.
Thank you. I will, my closing questions, last two. You're part of this whole group called the Rocket Women of India. And, how does it feel to be known as this Rocket Women? I mean, it's something the social media has put in, the print media. I know you may feel a bit embarrassed, and my apologies if I've said something, but how does it feel to be part of this Rocket Women of India, or to be known as a Rocket Woman?
I'm very humbled.
To that.
Yeah, I'm very humbled. It is all love of people and the respect what they have given to our space work, and I'm very humbled and very thankful to them. It's really a proud moment. And when there was really a MOI event, it was really a proud moment for all of us. So I'm very thankful to the people who have really, with out of love and affection, they have given this, and they have at least admired the work of women, also the participation of women scientists, and it has given a good boost to all the women scientists. So it's really we're very thankful to all.
My closing questions before I've got a few audience questions. We'll take 2 or 3. I'll put them to you. What are your 5 mantras of success, Dr. Ritu?
Okay,
personal, not ISRO, but your personal.
Yeah, as a person, for me, I feel there is no alternative to hard work. We used to write in our books, hard work is the key to success. Yes, hard work is the key to success, but then towards the path of success, there will be failures. So we have to have the perseverance to continue, not to stop at those failures. So hard work and perseverance is what I feel is the most important thing. But yes, apart from that, the dedication and towards the work, and the to conquering the fear of failure. We need not to have that fear that I will get failed, what will happen. That conquering that fear of the failure, of the unknown, that is very important. So I feel these are the things which I have experienced, and which I feel it is most important for having any getting any type of any achievement or any goals, to get any goals. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu. I've got a few
Thank you.
questions, so I'm just going to ask you. One question is from Abhay Nagle. What advice will you want to give my granddaughter who's 10 years old and who wants to be a space research scientist?
Oh, great. Yeah, and that is space research. Yes, she should pursue, she should continue. And I feel that is what, I feel when these young students, they get, like to know more in science or in technology. That is when we say, yes, we have done something. So I think she should continue her studies. And I think parents also should support all the times. I will say that parents and the teachers should support the girls, and all the girls. And then yes, for her also, my all the best wishes, and she will surely become a space scientist.
Okay. So this is from a young girl. I'm just putting her name, Rasika Deshpande. I'm a 6th standard student, ma'am. I want to join ISRO after my post-graduation, but I do not want to join engineering. Apart from physics and math, which subjects should I stretch on now onwards? Purvi Deshpande.
Yes, as I told, we have many areas of work in space science. It's not only engineering or technology. Like as I told, understanding the universe, the origin of universe. So that itself is a very vast field, and ISRO is also having many groups and the sections where this type of works and studies and things goes on. So you should keep trying you should continue your studies in physics and mathematics, and there is a huge opportunity, I will say, and a huge amount of unknown field is there to make it understand. So it is really good. We can continue with this science and maths. Yes.
The last question, let me see who. This is an interesting one. Madam, thanks for sharing this information. It was a proud moment for our country. I would like to know, is there a possibility of space travel in future for ambitious travelers or those who want to enter space and explore space, which Elon Musk is planning? What is your thinking on this?
Okay, so it is surely there. Elon Musk already started. So in near future, everyone will follow that also. So it's really a opportunity is there, yes. And the space traveling is now becoming a fascination. So it surely will be there, yes.
Okay, and another, I mean, there are lots of questions. So I don't know about solar panels. Do they change position based on the sun? I mean, this you answered, but I'll just.
Yes, actually speaking, it is a very good question. And, always we need to, because see what happens is there are two important things in a satellite. One is, for example, for Mars orbiter mission, the antenna has to keep looking towards Earth, while the panels should keep looking towards Sun. So the full spacecraft satellite will be rotated such that the antenna will keep looking towards Earth, but at the same time the panels, the Sun and Earth moves differently. So the panels also have the mechanism to track the sun. Wherever the sun is there, it moves in a separate way. Like, we have a mechanism. So that we can offset, we can change the direction of the solar panels and make it orient towards the sun, while keeping the antenna looking towards the earth. So this is a very important operation, and we have to keep looking. That panel should not go anywhere away from the sun, otherwise we'll not get the power. So we have the mechanism to make the panel look towards the sun.
Okay, and then definitely last question. What is your message for early career space research aspirants from the tiny state of Goa? What is your message to them? How can they join this career in space? What would be your message to them?
Yes, I would like to say that space is still a subject which is not understood, and it is the minute part of it only has been understood. There's lots and lots of things needs to be understood and needs to be done. As I told, the technology also has to like go up to the level where it can really reach each and every human being on this planet. And then also the technology to go beyond Earth and then make colonies over planets, and then understand this origin of universe also. So lots and lots of things have to be done, and I really wish that students from Goa also, and from our country, all over country, they are. I know they're all getting, after this missions like Mangalyaan and Chandrayaan, people are getting inspired, and they want to do they want to take it up as a career also, and do a lot of research work. But yes, what I feel is the research work is the most not only just a job or a career, but the research activity. We need to really focus on the research activity. So yes, people should come up and take this as a subject and do the research and try to find out very many unknowns which are still not known to us.
Okay, Dr. Ritu Karidhal, thank you so much for the brilliance of your presentation, your genius, your hard work. I think the nation is extremely proud of you. Thank you so much for the grace of your time and sparing your time with us. We are extremely grateful to you and would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we wish you all the success in all the future missions. And maybe sometime you can visit us in the ICG Goa, where we would love to host you and your team, or even you. We would be very honored to have you. Once again, thank you for the honor and privilege for hosting you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm really privileged to be part of your event. And I wish all the students, all of you, are very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you.